Hello and welcome to today's episode, an episode which will discuss media's representation of violence. Today, we are going to examine the role of media in representing violence, physical and emotional, verbal and non-verbal. The expert today is Ruchi Jaggi, who has been in the field of media education for over a decade and has a lot of research papers to her credit. I am Sakshi Mandwal. The creation of media content is driven by the current circumstances of the society as well as the prevailing cultural trends therein. Mass media, as we can see, is involved in our lives institutionally, economically, socially, culturally, and historically. The mass media wields a powerful influence on the world around us. This adage cannot be truer than in this age of 24/7 media. From the daily newspaper dropped at your door in the morning, other forms of printed text, watching television, time spent on the web, either through a focused work or general internet surfing, or even social networking, there is a constant scenario of engaging with the media as well as interacting with and via media. Let us first understand the concept of violence content in the media. Violence in the media has been an issue of research and public debate for many years. Research on violent television and films, video games, and music reveals unequivocal evidence that media violence increases the likelihood of aggressive and violent behavior in both immediate and long-term contexts. Recent surveys reveal an extensive presence of violence in modern media. Furthermore, many children and youth spend an inordinate amount of time consuming violent media. Research by the US-based Media Awareness Network reports that media violence has not just increased in quantity, it has also become much more graphic, much more sexual, and much more sadistic. Explicit pictures of slow-motion bullets exploding from people's chests in dead bodies surrounded by pools of blood are now commonplace fare. Millions of viewers worldwide, many of them children, watch female world wrestling entertainment wrestlers who try to tear out each other's hair and rip off each other's clothing.
Right now, Reggie Bennett in control of Candy Devine with the headlock, and that's the thing. Devine is going to have to stay away from these power holds and these power moves. They're taking a good handful of hair. Hey, it's a hold that nature invented. Good handful of hair.
Well, she used it to her advantage, and now she's still got a grab of that.
Violence is one of the global concerns today in all segments of the world. Antisocial behavior in human beings is accepted to be associated to a number of psychological, physiological, domestic, and cultural aspects. The learning environments which a child is exposed to are also assumed to contribute to the increase of aggressive behavior and attitudes. Media violence is believed to be a potential contributor to the growth of antisocial behavior in children and youth. In children and adolescents, greater exposure to violence in media has been correlated repeatedly to increased aggressive attitudes and behaviors. These correlations occur both for passive television and film viewing and for interactive engagement with video and computer games. Violence in TV programs has a documented influence on viewers' aggressive behavior and boosts fearfulness, distrust, desensitization, frustration, and pessimism. Concerns about the impact of television violence on society are almost as old as the medium itself. Let's take the example of a person in the cartoon or television show who gets bowled over by another character but gets back up without being harmed. Children begin to believe that violence doesn't really hurt others. Television starts communicating that violence is a good way to solve problems. Television is a powerful teacher, and if children are always viewing their favorite characters using violence or aggression to get what they want, children will do the same. TV makes violence and even death seem funny and unreal. Children do not learn to respect life because violent television desensitizes them. Television is make-believe. The people in the stories are make-believe. They are actors and the story is not true. Young children are unable to realize that when a character attacks someone, it is not real and should not be imitated. Research studies have also demonstrated potentially harmful effects of violent music lyrics. Numerous studies have shown that aggressive words can prime aggressive thoughts, perceptions, and behavior. Music and music videos are pushing into new and increasingly violent territory. For example, controversial rap artist Eminem has been criticized for writing violent lyrics that promote hatred against women. In spite of his promotion of violence, Eminem continues to be a commercial success. Eminem's success is not exceptional.
But that's alright because I like the way it hurts. Just gonna stand there and hear me cry. But that's alright because I love the way you lie. I love the way.
Extremely violent lyrics have moved into the mainstream of the music industry. The Universal Music Group, the world's largest music company, lists Eminem, Dr. Dre, and Limp Bizkit, all of whom have been criticized for their violent and misogynistic lyrics, amongst its top grossing artists. Violence is the foundation of many films. In fact, violence is often synonymous with action. Violence is often the very pretext for the action that follows. Violent films appeal to a broad range of ages. Films depict bleeding, the immediate consequence of violence, more often than TV. In fact, horror movies celebrate gooey, graphic, gory scenes. Such films may be analyzed objectively by adults who think about the background of the story and then realize that in fact the movie is a critique on the media earning money with such incidents.
You know what she did?
To children and youths, the story may show itself as a justification for cruel and violent action. They see people who are laughing during killing, humans, and maybe consider violence as a normal solution to even small problems. Movies have scenes that display different killings, raping as compensation for anger, drug abuse, and several other crimes that might have negative effect on the psychological development of children. Sometimes extremely violent films are for adults only, but youths can get access to such movies through friends or the internet. The degree of movies' effects on children is most likely to be influenced by their family surroundings, their state of psychological development, and other important factors. the often heard slogan according to which violence in the media is bad for children is much too simple and does not reflect the smaller factors. This topic needs a detailed discussion, and every individual child is influenced in a different way.
Law enforcement technology.
You called for backup?
One thing one can say is that violence in the media supports already present violence in some cases, and thus there should be parental guidance along with media that contains violent scenes or elements. On the other hand, the display of punished violence may also have a positive effect on children. They learn that violence is not right and will be punished. There is growing research on the effects of video games on children. Some video games may promote learning, problem solving, and help with the development of fine motor skills and coordination. However, there are concerns about the effect of violent video games on young people who play video games excessively. Studies of children exposed to violence have shown that they can become immune or numb to the horror of violence, imitate the violence they see, and show more aggressive behavior with greater exposure to violence. Some children accept violence as a way to handle problems. Studies have also shown that the more realistic and repeated the exposure to violence, the greater the impact on children. In addition, children with emotional, behavioral, and learning problems may be more influenced by violent images. There is a huge hype surrounding the launch of every new game system, affecting children age 4 all the way to 45-year-old adults. These video games have called for concern in a society regarding issues such as addiction, depression, and even aggression related to the playing of video games. A recent study of children in their early teens found that almost a third played video games daily, and that 7% played for at least 30 hours a week. What is more, some of these games being played, like Mortal Kombat, Marvel vs. Capcom, and Doom, are very interactive in their violence of slaughtering the opponent. The video game industries even put signs like real-life violence and violence level not recommended for children under age of 12 on their box covers, arcade fronts, and even on the game CDs themselves. In the modern popular game GoldenEye 007, bad guys no longer disappear in a cloud of smoke when killed. Instead, they perform an elaborate maneuver when killed. For example, those shot in the neck fall to their knees and then face while clutching at their throats. Other games such as Unreal Tournament and Half-Life are gorier. In these games, when characters get shot, a large spray of blood covers the wall and floor near the character. And on the occasions when explosives are used, the characters burst into small but recognizable body parts. In spite of the violence, the violent video games are also the more popular games on the market. Two features of video games fuel renewed interest by researchers, public policy makers, and the general public in this domain. First, the active role required by video games is a double-edged sword. It helps educational video games be excellent teaching tools for motivational and learning process reasons, but it also may make violent video games even more hazardous than violent television or cinema. Second, the arrival of a new generation of ultra-violent video games beginning in the early 1990s and continuing unabated to the present resulted in large numbers of children and youths actively participating in entertainment violence that went way beyond anything available to them on television or in movies. Recent video games reward players for killing innocent bystanders, police and prostitutes using a wide range of weapons including guns, knives, flamethrowers, swords, baseball bats, cars, hands and feet. Some include cutscenes, that is, brief movie clips supposedly designed to move the story forward, of strippers. In some, the player assumes the role of hero, whereas in others, the player is a criminal. Violent video games are significantly associated with increased aggressive behavior, thoughts and affect, increased physiological arousal, and decreased pro-social helping behavior. Cartoonish and fantasy violence is often perceived incorrectly by parents and public policy makers as safe even for children. However, experimental studies with college students have consistently found increased aggression after exposure to clearly unrealistic and fantasy violent video games. These theories base their explanation for violent media content's effects on a cognitive process. That is, people's aggressive behavior grows out of mental activity generated as a result of or in response to violent media content. These theories postulate that viewers learn how and when to act aggressively through exposure to media content. People learn not only through direct experience but also by observing others. Media content provides many opportunities for observational learning. Since violence is so common in the visual media, television, movies and video, media content provides many models for aggressive actions. Arousal is a physiological response that is marked by alertness, faster breathing and increased heart rate. Arousal is a fairly common reaction to media exposure. People often become caught up in the action of movies and television programs and become excited, frightened, sad and involved. Violent media content has the potential to be quite arousing. Also called cultivation analysis, this theory was proposed by George Gerbner during the 1970s and 1980s. The central argument of this theory is that television cultivates or creates a worldview that becomes a reality as we start believing in it as reality and base our judgments about our own everyday worlds on that reality. This theory was the result of massive research project conducted to probe the violent content on American television. It postulated that, number one, television has the power to shape our perceptions of reality and the world around us by affecting our attitudes and certain ways of thinking. Number two, people who view more television have more mainstreamed and homogeneous views and perceptions that converge with those represented on television shows. Those who watch 4 or more hours a day are labeled heavy television viewers, and those who view less than 4 hours per day are labeled as light viewers. Number 3. Heavy viewers are exposed to more violence, and therefore are affected by the mean world syndrome, an idea that the world is worse than it actually is. Parents can protect children from excessive violent content in the media in the following ways. Pay attention to the programs that children are watching and watch some with them. Set limits on the amount of time they spend with the television. Consider removing the TV set from the child's bedroom. Point out that although the actor has not actually been hurt or killed, such violence in the real life results in pain or death. Refuse to let the children see shows known to be violent and change the channel or turn off the TV set when offensive material comes on, with an explanation of what is wrong with the program. Disapprove of the violent episodes in front of the children, stressing the belief that such behavior is not the best way to resolve a problem. To offset peer pressure amongst friends and classmates, contact other parents and agree to enforce similar rules about the length of time and type of program the children may watch. Monitor children's gaming preferences and strictly adhere to age specifications. Media content perpetuates violence across different platforms. Films, television, music lyrics, and video games showcase blatant and subtle violent content. As technology makes virtual experiences more real, the participation of the audience is raised manifold. Hence, the potential of violent content to actually spur physiological reactions of aggression increases considerably. Though there have been studies and a series of projects to bring forward the ill effects of this media trend, media content is getting more violent in innovative ways. It is therefore very important at the family, school, and social levels to make children and youngsters more media literate so that they understand the difference between real and unreal and do not get desensitized towards everyday vagaries of life. Let us quickly run through what we discussed today. Research on violent television and films, video games, and music reveals unequivocal evidence that media violence increases the likelihood of aggressive and violent behavior in both immediate and long-term contexts. Violence is one of the global concerns today in all segments of the world. Media violence, as one of specific learning condition, is believed to be a potential contributor to the growth of antisocial behavior in children and youth. Violence in TV programs has a documented influence on viewers' aggressive behavior and boosts fearfulness, distrust, desensitization, frustration, and pessimism. Television starts communicating that violence is a good way to solve problems. Children do not learn to respect life because violent television desensitizes them. Research studies have also demonstrated potentially harmful effects of violent music lyrics. Numerous studies have shown that aggressive words can prime aggressive thoughts, perceptions, and behavior. Music and music videos are pushing into new and increasingly violent territory. Extremely violent lyrics have moved into the mainstream of the music industry. Violent films appeal to a broad range of ages. To children and youths, the story may show itself as a justification for cruel and violent action. Affecting children age 4 all the way to 45-year-old adults, these video games have called for concern in our society regarding issues such as addiction, depression, and even aggression related to the playing of video games. The violent video games are also the more popular games on the market. Violent video games are significantly associated with increased aggressive behavior, thoughts and affect, increased physiological arousal, and decreased pro-social helping behavior. Cognitive theories base their explanation for violent media content's effects on a cognitive process. These theories postulate that viewers learn how and when to act aggressively through exposure to media content. Theory of arousal postulates that arousal is a fairly common reaction to media exposure. Theory of cultivation postulates that television cultivates or creates a worldview that becomes the reality. Parents can protect children from excessive violent content in the media in the following ways. Pay attention to the programs that children are watching and watch some of them with them. Set limits on the amount of time they spend with the television. Consider removing the TV set from the child's bedroom. Disapprove of the violent episodes in front of the children, stressing the belief that such behavior is not the best way to resolve a problem. Monitor children's gaming preferences and strictly adhere to age specifications. One thing is certain, the issue of media violence is not going away. The culture of violence and on the normalization of aggression and lack of empathy in a society may cause irreparable damage. Hence, it's very important that the media restrains itself. That is all for today. Take care and all the best.